Chaos erupted on Jimmy Kimmel Live last night as Elon Musk stormed off the set mid-interview following a fiery clash with host Jimmy Kimmel. What began as light banter quickly spiraled into an explosive verbal war, sending shockwaves through the internet. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button for more jaw-dropping stories like this. It all started with a smirk. The camera panned to Jimmy Kimmel, seated comfortably in his usual late-night throne, tapping his cards against his desk, with that signature sly glint in his eye. Across from him, Elon Musk, tech mogul, Tesla titan, Twitter tammer, sat with the casual indifference of a man used to bending the world to his will. But Kimmel was sharper than usual tonight. There was something loaded behind his grin. "So," Kimmel began, folding his hands with faux sincerity, "when's the next time you plan on colonizing Mars? Or have you pivoted to something more realistic, like teaching Teslas not to crash into parked cars?" The audience laughed. Musk didn't. He gave a tight smile, the kind you wear when you're trying to keep your cool on national television. "Well, Jimmy, Mars is a long-term goal. These things take time. You might have noticed that building a multiplanetary civilization isn't quite the same as writing jokes in your basement." The crowd oohed. Kimmel leaned in. "Yeah, but at least my jokes land," he snapped back, flipping through his cue cards. "Speaking of landing, how's that Cybertruck doing? Still bulletproof? Or was that just the windows shattering under light pressure from a pebble?" Another laugh from the audience. This time, Musk's eyes narrowed. Kimmel was in rare form. His tone was surgical, the way he laced each jab with just enough truth to make them sting. He wasn't just making jokes. He was dismantling a brand, piece by piece, while the cameras rolled. "Let's talk about Neuralink," Jimmy continued. Now, fully in control of the moment. Because nothing says trustworthy innovation like a billionaire promising to install brain chips while Twitter burns to the ground. Musk's lips twitched. He glanced off camera briefly, clearly irritated. His typical calm, almost robotic demeanor was starting to glitch. "Jimmy, you're confusing satire with substance," Musk said, voice clipped. "I don't mind humor, but if this is going to be some kind of roast, maybe let the viewers know ahead of time so they can tune into something with actual insight." "Oh, they're tuned in," Kimmel shot back. "Trust me, no one's missing this. You should see Twitter right now. Oh, wait. Sorry, X. That whole rebranding really worked out, didn't it? Kinda like Facebook's Meta, except with more bugs and fewer users." Laughter erupted again. Musk wasn't laughing. His expression turned colder, flickers of genuine anger breaking through the typically polished exterior. He adjusted, the mic on his lapel, then stopped himself, suddenly aware of the cameras. But Kimmel wasn't done. He was relentless. "And Tesla," Jimmy said, drawing out the word. "What's going on with the stock this week? I mean, I've seen roller coasters with more stability. At least they don't catch fire." There was a pause. Musk leaned forward. "You really think you're clever, don't you?" Kimmel's grin widened. "No, Elon, I know I'm clever. That's why I host this show. And you're here trying to sell sci-fi dreams to keep investors distracted, while your company burns cash faster than one of your rockets burns fuel." Musk blinked. His jaw tightened. His fingers twitched slightly, on the armrest, but he didn't move. The silence stretched. "You mock the future because you don't understand it," Musk said slowly, his voice a low burn. "You're a comedian. Stay in your lane. And you're a salesman," Kimmel fired back almost immediately. "And lately, you've been selling more hype than results. At least I admit when I'm making things up." That was the crack. Something behind Musk's eyes hardened. He reached up and tore off his mic, the Velcro ripping louder than it should have been. He stood abruptly, the tension in the room snapping like a live wire. Gasps echoed from the audience. "I don't need to sit here and be insulted by a late-night clown," he growled, tossing the mic onto the chair. This is exactly why people don't trust the media. Because you don't build anything. You tear things down. Better than building overpriced toys and calling it a revolution, Kimmel muttered. Musk turned to leave. Kimmel's final words cut through the air, sharp and deliberate. At least when I bomb, I don't drag the stock market down with me. Musk stopped mid-step. He didn't turn around, didn't speak. He just walked off. The stage lights flickered for a beat longer, confused by the abrupt exit. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether they'd just witnessed late-night history or a billionaire unravel in real time. And then chaos. Online, the clip was already spreading like wildfire. Hashtags were trending within minutes. Chuck Kimmel vs. Musk. Deutsche Mick drop meltdown. Tesla takedown. The studio crew scrambled to fill time as the show went to an unscheduled commercial break. But behind the scenes, just out of frame, the real fallout was only beginning. The stage doors swung shut behind Elon, Musk with a thud that echoed down the corridor like a war drum. His steps were heavy, the kind of stride a man takes when he's forcing composure, knowing millions just watched him walk off a national stage. Not in triumph, but in retreat. Back on set, Jimmy Kimmel was motionless in his seat. His eyes flicked toward the producers offstage, searching for direction. The audience was hushed now, stunned, the laughter having vanished like smoke. The glow from the on-air sign above flickered once, then went dark. They were in commercial, but the energy in the studio hadn't stopped crackling. "He just left," whispered one of the producers into a headset backstage. "He actually walked out. Get someone on him before he does something stupid. Check the green room. He's furious." Down the hallway, Musk tore open the door to the dressing room marked with his name. The door bounced against the wall as it slammed open, nearly unhinged. He muttered under his breath, a flurry of curses. Some aimed at Kimmel, others at himself. He paced. Then he stopped. His phone buzzed. Once, twice, then constantly. He checked the screen, texts, dozens of them, Tesla board members, PR reps, even his brother. And then the number that froze him in place, his private broker. Drop just hit. Tesla down 9.2%. Still falling. His knuckles went white. On the studio floor, the break ended. Kimmel returned from commercial, still seated at his desk. His demeanor was less playful now, sharpened, like a man who'd drawn blood and knew it. "Well," he said into the camera, leaning forward just enough to fill the frame. "In case you're just tuning in, we had a bit of a, let's call it a disagreement with tonight's guest." The audience murmured, uncomfortable laughter, like they weren't sure what they were supposed to feel anymore. "I've seen a lot of things sitting at this desk," Kimmel continued. "Tom Cruise sprinted across this stage once. Kanye gave me the silent treatment for 6 full minutes. But this? A billionaire tech messiah storming off because someone poked fun at his toy cars? That's new." He paused for effect. "And 2, be clear. We invited Mr. Musk to talk about innovation, about the future. Hell, even about flamethrowers if that's what he wanted. But if you show up with a hypersensitive ego and a chip on your shoulder the size of a SpaceX booster, don't act surprised when someone calls it out." The room erupted. Half applause, half unease. This wasn't just banter anymore. This was theater. Real-time collapse disguised as comedy. Meanwhile, back in Musk's dressing room, the temperature was rising. A staffer knocked. "Mr. Musk? The producers want to know if you're willing to—" "No." Musk's voice cut through the door like a knife. "They had their moment. I'm done." He sat down hard on the couch, hands shaking now, not from fear, but fury. His mind raced. This wasn't just a PR nightmare. It was a personal humiliation, the kind that sticks, the kind that becomes a meme, a moment that gets played over and over until it becomes gospel. He'd lost control of the narrative, and Elon Musk never lost control. Another buzz. His assistant this time. Tesla Reddit is melting. Stocks triggered auto sell orders. Twitter is full of clips. Kimmel's monologue is going viral. He stared at the message, then back at the mirror. His own reflection seemed foreign. Sweaty, flushed, human. Not the untouchable icon he curated. Not the futuristic oracle millions followed, invested in, defended. No, this was a man cornered, and he hated it. Then came the knock that broke him. Kimmel's producer, Marla, stepped in. Not timid, professional. "Mr. Musk, we can smooth this over. Come back out. Do a short bit. Reclaim it. The audience will respond." Musk didn't even look at her. "You want me to walk back out there and pretend none of that happened? We'll frame it however you want. We can spin it. You've got a moment. Don't let it become his moment." But Musk had already made his decision. "I built rockets," he muttered, voice low. "I built satellites, AI, neurological tech. I carried Twitter through the storm and I made it better. And he mocks me with late-night punchlines." Marla didn't respond. She knew it wasn't a conversation. It was a man unraveling. Back, on the main stage, the audience had thinned. The energy was broken. Kimmel was signing off early. The band played a half-hearted outro. But just as the credits were about to roll, the side door to the set slammed open. Musk stepped in. No mic. No pretense. The audience gasped. Even Kimmel looked stunned for a beat. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't a stunt. This was raw. Musk marched center stage, eyes locked on Kimmel. "You think you're clever," he began, not waiting for an invitation. "You think because you've got an audience and a camera, you can throw punches with no consequences?" Kimmel raised a brow. "Elon? No." Musk held up a hand. "You mock the future like it's a joke. But I am the future. You think any of this is funny? You think you're safe up here because the world still thinks it's better to laugh at problems than solve them?" Kimmel stood now, calmly. "Elon, we gave you the platform. You chose the fallout." Musk took one step closer. "No, you made this personal. And now your show just cost my company billions." Jimmy didn't flinch. "If this is all it takes to unravel you, maybe your empire wasn't that solid to begin with." The room tensed. Audience holding their breath, Musk's jaw clenched. His fists balled. For a moment, just 1 second, there was silence so deep it roared. Then he turned, walked off. Again. But this time, there was no applause, no music, no clever one-liner, just tension. And somewhere behind that exit door, a PR team already drafting the damage control memo that would try, and fail, to contain what had just gone down. The finality of Elon Musk's exit reverberated, like an aftershock through the studio, a storm of silence broken only by the soft hum of idle cameras and the shuffled footsteps of crew members unsure if they were still part of a live show or a historical broadcast imploding in real time. The air felt different now, charged, brittle, like static before lightning strikes. The band hadn't resumed playing. They didn't dare. Kimmel stood center stage, still facing the space Musk had just vacated. A strange mix of triumph and discomfort tugging at the edges of his expression. The audience had thinned to a fraction, and those who remained sat hushed in their chairs, craning to see what would happen next. Jimmy didn't try to recover the tone. He didn't crack a joke to ease the tension. That moment had passed. Instead, he reached for his water, took a sip, and addressed the camera directly. "Well," he said, letting the pause speak for him, "that wasn't on the cue cards." A few stifled chuckles, but mostly quiet. It was the kind of silence where people weren't just watching entertainment, they were witnessing a seismic shift and trying to decide what it meant. Backstage, the chaos had moved like wildfire. Musk's team was in full triage mode. Phones buzzed non-stop. One aide was already on the line with CNBC, trying to spin the incident as a manufactured publicity moment, while another was furiously writing an X thread for Musk's personal account that painted the entire exchange as an attack on innovation, freedom, and visionaries. But Musk wasn't with them. He had locked himself in the green room, alone, lights off, no sound. For 20 minutes, he sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the carpet, jaw tight, foot tapping, brain looping. The same humiliation over and over. The footage, the mockery, the Twitter storm, the falling stocks. The moment his carefully cultivated image was shredded by a man with a desk, a grin, and no fear of pushing the knife in. There was no controlling the narrative now. And for a man, like Musk, that was the true loss. Back on set, Jimmy was wrapping up the show. No guests, no musical performance. Just him, a camera, and a monologue no one had expected to deliver. I've sat across from presidents, pop stars, war heroes, and people who've never been famous a day in their life, he said, leaning against his desk. I've joked with them, argued with them. Hell, I've even offended them once or twice. But I've never seen a guest storm out twice and then try to flip the script on the world watching. He paused. Elon Musk isn't just a guest. He's a brand, a symbol. To some people, he's a messiah of technology. To others, a walking PR grenade. And tonight we saw the real version. The one that doesn't like being laughed at. The one that confuses criticism for conspiracy and burns down the room when he's not in control, the audience murmured. Kimmel continued, "This isn't a roast. This is reality. When your ego's bigger than your achievements, every joke feels like a threat." Applause. It began slowly, cautiously, then louder, sustained. Across the country, millions were tuning in to live stream replays, social media clips, and trending hashtags. TikTok feeds were flooded with stitched reactions. Twitter, X, was ablaze with split-screen edits, debates, parody remixes. Musk's defenders rallied, of course, shouting about sabotage, bias, disrespect. But the tide was turning. Something had shifted. Tesla's shares closed the after-hours market down 12.6%. Analysts called it the Kimmel correction. The following morning, headlines screamed, "Elon implodes on live TV. Kimmel versus Musk." The night the mask slipped. Tesla stock in tailspin after CEO's meltdown. Every major outlet covered it, dissected it. Media experts, financial analysts, even comedians. Late-night hosts who had once seen Musk as a darling of progress now saw him as a cautionary tale. But in the eye of the storm, Jimmy Kimmel remained composed. In a follow-up interview the next day, he was asked if he had regrets. "Look," Kimmel said, adjusting his suit, "I didn't invite Elon on the show to fight. I invited him to talk. But if you show up to a conversation with a flamethrower and expect nobody to get singed, you're in the wrong room." The interviewer leaned in. "So, what's next?" Jimmy smiled. "The show goes on. It always does." As for Musk, he went silent. No tweet storm. No public statement. Not even a quote to the press. His account, usually a torrent of thoughts, memes, and provocations, was quiet. Rumors circulated that his board was furious, that investors were demanding answers, that even SpaceX had quietly postponed a launch, waiting for the headlines to die down. But they didn't, because this wasn't just another billionaire outburst or another celebrity scandal. It was a moment when two worlds collided, one built on charisma and comedy, the other on ambition and arrogance. And only one left the stage, intact. The footage from that night became legend. Media schools taught it as a case study. PR firms played it in training sessions. It became a symbol of what happens when unchecked ego meets an immovable force of accountability. And in living, Rooms, dorms, office break rooms around the world, people kept watching the clip. Not for the drama, not for the insults, but for the moment a man who claimed to own the future was told, simply and clearly, that no one is immune to being laughed at, especially when they've started to believe they're untouchable. Jimmy Kimmel returned the next night with a new monologue. No Musk jokes, no callbacks, just the usual rhythm of humor and humility that had kept him on air for years. The crowd welcomed him like a familiar friend, their applause no longer polite, but earned. And somewhere, behind a closed boardroom door, Elon Musk sat at the head of a long, tense table, replaying the clip on his phone in silence, over and over and over again. This time, there was no mute button.